And welcome to the Mulligan Stew podcast. I'm a TD Mulligan, that's the name. This interview that we're going to bring you is easily done simply because he's a friend. Barney Bentall and I have known each other a long time. And he came up through the rock and roll ranks. Barney Bentall and the Legendary Hearts cut a swath through Canadian pop music. And I love the band, love the concerts. They ran a great race. They slowed it down. Everybody went not so much their separate ways, but some went into the managing business. Some went to being first chair calls for everybody doing studio work. Barney headed for a ranch at 108 Mile House. The old stagecoach road that goes up the middle of the province of BC, an actual stagecoach road trail that became the highway. And so they marked it with ranches, 100 Mile, 108, whatever, the signposts. I guess if you're riding that carriage, you want to know when you can get off. And anyway, so Barn did that and stayed with the music business. He had 5, 6, 7, 8 different groups that he would get together. And one of them was the Caribou Express, which I think is what they call the stagecoach. And it was a loose gathering of friends, players, singers, songwriters that would go out and do gigs in and around leading up to Christmas, specifically to raise funds for the food banks of Western Canada or wherever they went. And they've been doing it for 20 years, and Barney decided it was a lot of work and it was time to maybe slow down and do something else. So he's doing one more tour through Western Canada, and he'll end up in Toronto, actually. And the tour is called The Last Roundup. There'll be some tears shed. He's been doing it 20 years, and they've raised millions of dollars, millions. And he's still doing it, and that's why they'll hand him an Order of Canada, not too far down this road. So here's a conversation with Barney about this last time round, the last roundup, and then what he's going to do with his time moving forward. Barney Bentall. My name is Terry David Mulligan. This is Mulligan Stew, CKUA Radio. Because this is the 9th, I kind of knew where I could find Barney Bentall. He's at the K-Meek Center in West Vancouver. But also I know that next Friday, he'll be at Bella Hall in Calgary. I don't know at this late date if there are still seats available. You can find out for certain. In the meantime, we'll talk to Barney about this final roundup. Is that what you called it, Barn?
The Last Roundup.
The Last Roundup.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the writer was just claiming a phrase until I realized that it was the Last Roundup.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I decided, as I knew this was going to be the 20th year, and it's funny. It goes by so quickly. I think of my career, my time with the Legendary Hearts, although Legendary Hearts played 2 shows this summer, which were fantastic. But my real peak in the height of my success with that band, it was 10 years, and it seemed like a lifetime. And then all of a sudden I've been doing the Caribou Express for 20. That's what happens to time as you age, I think. But it's all very precious to me. And I felt that the world is a complex place right now when you say, Terry. And I found, I felt like the idea had sort of run its course. I just felt like it was time to move on. And maybe for the next, this has always been multi-generational, this show. And maybe for the next generation, if they want to do something or carry or think of some way to I guess give back to society, that's great. But
well, for example, yeah. I mean, here at the Mary Winspear, you're 4 nights there. I wrote some numbers down. You have raised at the Mary Winspear, somewhere near $560,000.
It's actually, I don't really like to talk about this stuff, but I just want big congratulations to Bev Elder, who runs the food bank there. But over the run over the years, we've raised $660,000, and then this year we raised $105,000, which was everybody was pretty happy about that. And of course, they parlay that into probably in some ways, couple $200,000 or $250,000 worth of actual food input into the community, and sadly, the food banks are needed more than ever now. So,
and especially at this time of year, especially.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, CKUA being in the fundraising business, you don't have to qualify it. I understand those numbers roll. You just got to get them roll in the right direction. That's all.
They do.
What's going out is coming in. This kind of thing. So Saanich with 4 nights in one place is fantastic.
I tell you, in a very selfish way, as a musician, and of course Jeffrey Kelly, my longtime friend from Spirit of the West, Jeffrey Kelly, has been playing with us for the last 4 or 5 years. But we, selfishly speaking, the fact that you don't have to move, you've just got 4 nights. It's everybody's like, oh my God, we set up and we don't have to, at the end of the show, you don't have to do anything. You just leave your equipment on stage. It's a wonderful thing to settle into it, especially on Vancouver Island.
Because you're at Vancouver Island. Yeah. You can go bike riding. You can go fishing.
I did every day. It was beautiful.
On the road with you, because you were at the Winspear, was Leroy able to join?
Leroy was, because Leroy has been there, he hasn't been there every year. There's only 4 members or 5 people that have been in the 20-year club that have been there every year. That's Wendy Bird, my son Dustin, Ridley Bent, myself, and Rob Becker from Nanaimo, our bass player. So we're the ones that have been there every year, but Leroy's been there a lot, and so it was great to get him back there. And I had Lorna Crozier, our poet laureate from the island, so they were wonderful shows.
You made a point of talking about recognizing also the people on stage with you, but also the core members. And so I guess Ridley Bent would be in there somewhere.
Yeah. Ridley's been there every year.
Anybody else?
It's funny. I made reference to it when we at the shows, but 20 years ago, Ridley and Leroy and my son Dustin and that group of young people. It's tough because and Matt Masters was there. Cam Latimer passed away.
Yeah.
I mean, back then they were wild. They were a bit wild, and this thing almost didn't last more than 1 or 2 years. For that reason, it was just like I was having to herd the kittens. But I hung with it, and I've watched those young people. Well, I mean, some have had a tougher go of it, but I've watched, my son Dustin and Ridley and Leroy just really develop into great fathers, great songwriters, and professional musicians.
Yeah,
it's wonderful to see. And now I've got this year my daughter Jess and Dustin are the co-hosts with me, and it's great. I'm having the time of my life. I'm cherishing every moment.
Although you have described it as rounding everybody up as a goat rodeo.
Yeah,
that's it.
It was. I have more professional help now. In the early days, because it was a fundraiser, and I'd often, series of fundraisers, and I'd come back at the end of the month being one of the main contributors, donators, because just the expenses were such. So
you have a lot of songs to call on, to pull from. Do you do Come Back to Me?
We often have, but this year I'm doing a couple of new things. I always do Something to Live For.
You do it?
We close the second set with Something to Live For and Home for a Rest, Spirit of the West, and then Ridley's song Suicide Wanderer. It's a pretty powerful end to an evening.
Do you do your Dylan song?
No, I don't. I do. I wrote a song for this tour for this last. It's called The Last Roundup. It's sort of about a cowboy. It starts when he was young. He'd wrap both hands around the horn swing his right leg up and over the saddle. Nowadays, he has to look for a big old stump to get himself back up on that same saddle.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and it's a touching song, and it's really about, you know, I guess it's about aging. I mean, you and I can definitely relate. I mean, think of how many conversations you and I have had over the years, and we're still doing what we're doing, and I'm really proud of that. I'm proud, and whenever I talk to you, I go, wow, this all the history and all that you've contributed to the music business. It's wonderful.
Thank you for that. By the way, just playing the Bella is not just playing the Bella. You're going back home. You're going back to your Calgary roots. You
Yeah,
probably have friends out in the audience.
yeah,
It's a big deal.
yeah, it is. And then it's kind of working out well. We were going to go the next weekend to Toronto to do the very last show, but this when Taylor Swift is going to be in Toronto, and it really is a profound economic
Yes.
driver.
Yes.
So when my manager Colin Nairn, who well, he just said everybody, this is not a good idea. It's gonna cost so much money. So, anyways, we moved it to January 31st.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be good because we'll have, we'll be. I think everybody's going to be sad after that Calgary show, happy and sad at the same time. That it's over, but then there's one more kick at the can, and of course in Toronto we'll have Jim Cuddy will be there, Tom Wilson.
There you go.
But there's Matt Mays was there last time. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. And
Fun and bittersweet.
tell someone to please just record something, anything, video or audio. Just for the record, I was going to ask you about what you want to do with the rest of your life.
Oh, well, thank you for asking. I'm like you. I think I'd feel, when things are really busy and you go, wow, it'd just be kind of great to retire and hang out with the grandchildren, and putter.
Okay.
But I do get lots of, I have the ranch and I do get all the puttering I need there, but and farm work, but I still have a need to make music and I love performing live. And I'm putting together a sort of one person, not play. I don't think you could call it a play, but a night of music and stories and visuals, film about my life in ranching and rock and roll. So that's been really inspiring to work on. It's sort of to not chronologically. I've always loved novels that, it's all of a sudden 1979 and then it's 2000 and I just like that moving fluidly back and forth through time. And so that's the way it'll go. It'll talk about my time growing up in Calgary, the son of a Baptist minister, and then all of a sudden having our first hit on the radio, and then the moment where we bought the ranch, and part of the drive to do this was just when I would sometimes we're hanging out having a drink after the show anytime when people get me going on ranch stories, because I didn't grow up in a ranching family. Clearly, from what I just said, I grew up in a church family, so our learning curve with it was somewhere between horrifying and comical all at the same time. The things you'd do and be exposed to, and turning hundreds of thousands of dollars of cattle out onto rangeland and not being able to find them for 2 weeks, and all the locals kind of chuckling at what's the rock star going to do right now. It was just it's entertaining stuff and
good stories.
Yeah. So I think so. I'm going to do that, and I'll tour that starting next fall. So I mean that's part of the I wanted to make room for it, and it's 20 years seemed like a good.
Don't you have a bag of songs in your pocket somewhere?
Oh my goodness. I mean, that's part of you and I both know now it's a complicated time in music.
Yeah.
I do think in terms of albums and it's just, I think I feel a need to write. So when I wrote the song, The Last Roundup for this tour, there was a reason to do it and there was an idea and then away you go. It's hard to know what making a record will do these days and how you put it out. And, I've only been on really two labels all my life, Sony Music or Columbia, which became Sony, and then True North Records, which was sort of was distributed by them initially. And, but True North is now sold to an American entity. So I didn't know it's changing and I've been lucky to have homes for my records, but I don't know what's going to happen now.
I have a suggestion for you as soon as we've done this interview. So, Barn, I'm going to let you go because we both have things to do. We've got busy lives at this late date. Have a great time at the Bella Hall. Have a wonderful time in Toronto in the wrap up, and I can't wait for the album.
Oh, thank you. Well, and you know what? Nice to see you, Terry, as always, and just keep doing what you're doing.
And thank you, by the way, for the continual Christmas songs and specials that we recorded at Roundhouse Radio. I continued. I still play them.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we're going to get, if everybody shows up, I think we'll do it. They'll be at Craig's studio. It's going to be Trans-Canada Christmas, Trans-Canada Highwaymen. And they'll at least throw in a song a la the same thing that you did on stage at Roundhouse.
Well, you know what? Is it going to be Craig's studio in North Van?
Yep.
Let me know if they want me to be an honorary Trans-Canada Highwayman. I think I have the credentials.
Okay.
Been lots of contact with Craig lately because he just had his first grandchild.
Yeah.
I'm on number where we hit double digits. Gath and I now have got 11 grandchildren. So, but it's been beautiful to see that process through the eyes of Craig.
Take care of yourself, Barn.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.